I don't even want to vote.
Hey, welcome to HoopSpeak Live, where, yes, we are live, and Zach Harper doesn't even want to vote. Lots been going down in the NBA, not in the last few days, but in the last 2 weeks, specifically the Dwight Howard trade. We were off last week, so we didn't really talk too much about the Lakers and what they're going to look like next year. Ethan and I wrote way too much about this team as kind of a paragon of conventionality in terms of who's at the point guard, who's the shooting guard. They're playing this big tall ball inside. Is it going to work?
I think it's going to work, but it's not going to work as well as people assume it's going to, just because so many things need to go right. You think about, the age of the players involved. Nash is going to be 39 before the playoffs start. Then you have Powell at 30. He's going to be 33. Kobe is going to be 34 before the season starts. You're just relying on everybody staying healthy, including Dwight Howard coming back from back surgery. If it all goes swimmingly, if everything happens and breaks correctly, it could be a great team. But chances are that something's going to go wrong, and that's why I would favor a more versatile team, say like the Miami Heat or the Thunder, a faster team where they're not necessarily relying on creaky bones. What say you, though?
Why are we pretending that this team can't play fast or that they aren't versatile? They can run any kind of lineup they want, big, small, really whatever they want to do. And the only concern I have is not even Dwight's back, but it's how Nash will do without the Suns trainers. I think everything else will be fine. But they seem to have a very good system of how to deal with Nash and when to know to pull back and when to know to push him for which games he can play, not play, and how many minutes. But as far as like the actual basketball goes, they're gonna kill. I mean, you really can't stop their offense, even if you think Kobe is, no longer a good scoring threat. The defense is still going to play him like one, and I think that just opens everything up for that team.
I could see it going that way. I could definitely see it working wonderfully. I do have some concerns about Nash that aren't just injury-based. I hate to be so negative. It sounds like I'm a Laker hater. I just have an uneasy feeling about the team.
You're a closet Laker enthusiast. You love the Lakers.
I love the Lakers. I grew up in Southern California with Chick Hearn. I love the Lakers, but it's funny because if you don't bow down before the altar of Kobe Bryant, then people conflate that with having a seething resentment and jealousy towards the Lakers, which is not necessarily so. In the case of Nash, I saw him. It seems wrong to point out one game as indicative of so much, but when he came to Oracle, was just carving the Warriors. He was surgical. He was ruining them in the first half. Then they put Udo in, and on track to the goal. He was totally rendered just feeble out there, and I've seen it a few other times where he doesn't necessarily have the elusiveness that he used to have. And so I worry about what would happen if they're facing a more versatile team, like, say, the Heat. What occurs if they put LeBron James on Steve Nash? Is that something that Nash can handle? Not even the PNR trap, but just being able to dribble. I am a bit concerned on that end.
Well, I think that Nash will be fine. I think one thing that's hard to quantify and something that I almost can't process, is that Dwight Howard is really, really, really good and makes a huge impact on the teams, on those Magic teams. They were going to be the 3 seed with, their second best player being Ryan Anderson last year. And that's in the East, but the point is that Dwight Howard just impacts the game so entirely, and I think that he has this ability, over the last 5 years, teams that play against so you can go on HoopDad and look at opponent shot locations, and the Magic have given up the fewest, and been in the top 5, let's see if I can phrase this in a way that makes sense, top 5 fewest opponent attempts at the rim over the last 4 years. So basically, once Dwight Howard matured into the defensive force that he's been, teams just don't get to the rim, and that's with subpar perimeter defenders, which they'll again have. And I think that when you really dominate the paint, the way that the Lakers did when they won a title in 2009, 2010, it just makes everything easier. And guys like Kevin Durant and LeBron James are pretty much, unstoppable offensively, but one player who does make a tangible impact on their ability to do what they want to do at the rim is Dwight Howard. I feel like we should also start calling him Dwight Howard instead of Dwight. Just really emphasize, that's the sportscaster talk. Dwight Howard.
Ooh, yeah.
Here's the thing about Dwight Howard that Ethan isn't really taking into account is how much he's going to help Steve Nash get through those problems with traps. How much Pau Gasol is going to get through those problems if Nash is trapped on the perimeter. Let's say he runs a pick and roll and they trap it with Pau and they trap Nash and try to get the ball out of his hands. Well, then he gives it to Pau, who's the second best passer on the team and the best passing big man in the league. I just don't think there's a way that you can really shut down their offense. I think it's kind of odd that the thing I worry about the most with that team is how they'll do defensively, and they just added Dwight Howard. So I don't think the offense is going to be a problem. I don't think Nash, his style of play is going to be a problem at all. I think it just comes down to, can they figure out how to use Dwight Howard properly on defense, which sounds kind of stupid, and maybe it is, but Stan Van Gundy's system defensively helped cause those few attempts at the rim. I mean, that system was pretty brilliant. It wasn't just Dwight Howard protecting the rim. It was designed to set them up for long twos.
I don't think it's unreasonable for you to worry more about the defense, and I love that this trade happened. I'm fascinated by the Lakers. I just want the season to start now. I want to watch every Lakers game. I'm very enthusiastic about it because I want to see what happens with Dwight Howard in a totally new system. He's probably the best defensive player in the game, but we've only seen him on one team. And he's surrounded by a lot of guys who aren't so athletic, and can he fill all the gaps? Can he do that in this situation? It's an interesting question. Last year, the Magic were as good on defense as the Lakers were, and obviously Dwight missing some time accounted for some of that. So I would certainly like to see it, and it's not inconceivable because defense is more collective than offense is. It's not inconceivable that they struggle defensively, especially if Dwight, coming off major back surgery, has some mobility compromised.
Right, and a big part of their offense is going to have to be three-point shooting. Kobe's got to shoot a higher percentage. World Peace has got to shoot a higher percentage. I think it would be fascinating if Steve Nash ended up shooting 4 or 5 threes a game. If he does that, I think he'll score more points than he ever has. I mean, I'd have to look at his actual career. I don't think he's ever scored much more than like 17 points a game, though. And he could easily do that if he's getting, 3 to 7 like wide open looks every game, in addition to what he's going to get coming off of pick and rolls. Obviously, this is all speculation, which makes it very fun, and that's part of what we've been doing for the last few days. ESPN has this thing called the summer projections, and basically you have to pick how many games every team is going to win, which sounds like really like, oh, okay, 45, 49, whatever. But you have to get them all to add up to 1,230, which is how many games are going to be played next year, which ends up being very difficult. The first time I went through, I was 70 over, and you just don't expect there to be a truly terrible team, well, maybe you do this year, that's going to win like 12 games. Everyone you're kind of like, oh, maybe they could get to 24. You're always very optimistic before the start of the season. Is there a team out there that you think, a lot of people is like a 30-win team, but is really more like a 20, 18-game win team?
Well, I think that the Bobcats could repeat as whatever the opposite of champions are. I think that's the first thing. I find it fascinating that we're overly optimistic in adding these wins up, you mentioned, and we always go over in the aggregate, and I think that's because, as you were discussing prior to this show, we don't account for one team surprising us with their utter craptitude. And I think the Bobcats, what reason do we have that the Bobcats won't just be the same Bobcats next year? I would look out for them to be...
You know that NKG is a winner. You probably didn't put that into your calculus, but it's worth at least 20 wins.
He has poise. Yes, I forgot about that. He has poise and humility, and poise and humility have won many a championship. Yes, Zach.
In Ethan's, for lack of a better term, Well, I'll just say it. In Ethan's filleting of Anthony Davis and his wingspan, what is lost is MKG would easily be the best player in this draft class. I mean, it's not inconceivable to think that Anthony Davis doesn't live up to the hype and MKG exceeds expectations. He's an extremely good player. He's a jump shot away from being dominant, and defensively, he may be as impactful as Anthony Davis is, depending on the system. Now, if they're going to press all the time and they're going to try to be a college team in the NBA, there's a lot of high risk, high reward there, where maybe they steal 5 or 6 games that they wouldn't normally win because they were just too much pressure and too much energy for a team coming off, a 4th game in 5 nights or something like that. I don't think the Bobcats are even close to as bad as they were last year. I think they actually have a focus.
For the record, Zach said filleting because my analysis of Davis was so incisive. Such incisive analysis that he agreed with. So that was the word choice there. Look, I could see that happening. I could see Anthony Davis disappointing. We don't know. I can't predict the future. But here's what I want to know. If this is the case, and if you have such optimism, either of you, for MKG, then who is the worst team next year? Which team has the turd medal going into next year?
I'll say Orlando. I know they were decent, even without Dwight Howard. They were somewhat decent towards the end of the season. They were decent enough to not completely fall apart and fall out of the playoffs. But at the same time, no Stan Van Gundy, no Dwight Howard, and Jameer Nelson's their best player. There's no way that ends well. There's no way that ends with 20 wins. I would be shocked if they won 20 games.
Okay, my pick for team that is sneaky bad is the Suns. I think the Suns are going to be terrible next year. They're going to be so bad. Jermaine O'Neal, big offseason signing, added 3 years back onto his knees, he said, which would bring him back to when he was still terrible. That team is not looking good. You guys have had some of the sneaky bad teams of the decade where people have been excited about them and then they've turned out to be absolute trash. This year, it seems like actual reason for excitement. This is going to be our little debate, little take the bacon. Ethan representing the Warriors. Yeah, loosen up, get the shoulders going. Zach, you're going to represent the Timberwolves. Who wins more games?
Well, I've almost stopped writing about the Warriors because I don't know how to convey optimism in the written form. I don't know what to do with it. So I've been very lax with the posting on Warriors World, and I think that means something, and it's because for the first time in a long time, the Warriors roster makes sense. It makes functional sense, Zach. Functional sense. You have a point guard. You have an effective wing in Brandon Rush. You know, he doesn't do too much, and he just hits threes and plays defense. You have a very good defensive center in Andrew Bogut who can finally compensate for David Lee and make him somewhat valuable. I'm happy. This is the first non-Nelly post-apocalyptic nightmare roster, and so I would trend towards playoffs here.
You know, I could talk about how Kevin Love has probably become the best power forward in the league. Pekovic has emerged as one of the best interior forces in the league. There's Rubio's just unicornosity. That he just makes everything much better. Kirilenko is a fantastic signing. If Brandon Roy gives them anything, that is a huge plus. Shved, Rittenauer, Barea all add much-needed depth to the backcourt. They've got Chase Butler to knock down shots. Derek Williams should definitely improve off of last year. But the Warriors are going to be better. They're absolutely going to be better than the Timberwolves because Rubio is going to miss probably 23 to 25 games. So I can't argue that the Wolves are going to be better. If they had a healthy Rubio get blown out his knee, I would absolutely guess that they're above the Warriors at the end of the season. But I can't trust that there's going to be any kind of cohesiveness on offense or defense in the first 2 months of the season. And I think the Warriors, it's obviously a big if, but if they're healthy, that's a 50-win team. I mean, that's a really good roster that's completely balanced.
Ethan is so scared of that optimism.
I'm staggered. Also, I just think that Zach killed any future he has as a studio analyzer of sports. It's not what you do. You don't actually look at the evidence and then agree with somebody with all intellectual honesty. That is terrible, terrible sports radio / video. You are supposed to argue, and the more irrational, the more people will be angry and tune in and click on it. You just completely screw that up, Zach. But at the same time, I do admire your candor as much as I criticize your approach. What?
I did like accuse you of being very aggressive with your Anthony Davis praise earlier.
Well, I appreciate it, and I agree with you. I think injuries are the obvious concern for the Warriors, as they always are. But generally, even when it comes to the Warriors, if you're saying that a team is great, but we just have to worry about injuries, that's probably a decent bet. The average player makes it through a season, and I see no reason why Bogut, who's had odd freak injuries, there's nothing chronic nagging him, can't get through another year. The Warriors hired a bunch of Stanford people to be their new training staff, for whatever that's worth. And I think the big question mark is Steph Curry. It's about Steph Curry next season.
I can't believe you didn't say the big question mark was Mark Jackson. We got to keep in mind that we have no reason to believe he can coach a 50-win team. We don't really have reason to believe otherwise, I guess, because, the sample that he had last year wasn't very inspiring. But, let's be real. I'm worried about Mark Jackson on that team. I'm worried about him not having good rotations. I'm worried about him coaching like this is still the 90s and not opening it up for a lot of threes. I'm worried about him not getting along with his assistant coach who wants to have a head coaching job and has been very public about that. Whereas Rick Adelman, I trust as a coach who may not do much with the defense, but that team is going to score and run some pretty offense, I would imagine.
Here's the thing that really worries me. Pekovic is coming off of an ankle surgery, maybe it's foot surgery. And they have absolutely no depth in the front court. It's Love, Derek Williams, Dante Cunningham, Greg Steensma, and Pekovic. Steensma is the only center they have on the roster if Pekovic gets hurt, and that is going to be a huge problem. You can play Love at the 5, but they're going to give up 130 points for 100 possessions if that happens.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's ugly. All right. Well, let's settle this debate by bringing in our first guest from Sports Illustrated, longtime friend of the show, Zach Lowe.
Long-time friend. Okay. I like it. I'll take it.
So, who you got, Warriors or Timberwolves, more games this year?
To me, it all depends on Rubio. If Rubio's healthy on a faster than expected timetable, I think the Timberwolves are definitely a playoff team and ahead of the Warriors, but I don't think that's likely, so I will say the Warriors.
Doesn't every person who has an ACL surgery, we find out that they're ahead of schedule by like 2 weeks, and then it turns out that they get way behind schedule when they actually come back? I think everyone's always ahead of schedule on how much weight they can push, and then once they start playing, they're like, whoa, this is, we're not ahead of schedule to getting to super freak athleticism.
Yeah, and that's why, the cliche thing is now everyone's saying it's the second year after you come back. The first year is sort of a throwaway. Actually, I would like to see, I'm sure Kevin Pelton has done a study of this that I've read and forgotten at this point. I should look it up because it's interesting to me. We have all these sort of cliches, ahead of schedule, second year. I wonder how much variance there is in that. But yeah, I don't expect, the Wolves are interesting because they've gotten themselves enough playmakers now that maybe they don't need Rubio, but he's obviously probably a step above, the Barea, Ridnour, and who knows what they're going to get from Roy or Shved. So I think they need him to be at peak form.
Well, he's also their only point guard who can play a lick of defense. A really only guard who plays much defense, and that's also crucial. One thing I wanted to talk about, moving completely different team, talking about 76ers and talking about Andrew Bynum being alone, being on his own and carrying a team. We both watched a lot of video. What stuck out to you when you were checking out Bynum in the block by himself?
I didn't watch as much Bynum in the block as you did. I watched him in the pick and roll and how rarely he ever ran the pick and roll with the Lakers. I think he had like 35 shots out of the pick and roll all season, which is like you think he would just sort of accidentally stumble in to that many shots. I would say Powell was probably the passer on more than half of them. I mean, there just weren't a lot of guard, Bynum pick and rolls. And, I don't know how much that matters, but I think they envisioned Drew Holiday and Evan Turner being, advanced NBA pick and roll ball handlers, so it would help. But, I've looked at, we've all watched Bynum a ton, and I don't think I've seen anything different than what you've seen, which is they're going to swarm him this year even more than they already did on the Lakers, and his passing has to improve, and we'll see if it does, and we'll see how much freedom Collins gives him to shoot, 14 or 15-foot jumpers, which I don't think, everyone laughs at him because of the three-point shots and all that, but I don't think it's unreasonable to think he has a 14-footer. I mean, he clearly has it. We've seen it. He has a nice touch. He can shoot free throws. I wonder how much we'll see that as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I guess as far as pick and rolls, and yeah, you would want Drew Holiday coming off that pick and roll. My guess is that they'll do what they did with the Lakers, which is have him on the duck in instead of actually setting the screen. So LaVoy Allen will pick and pop, and then he'll duck in and look for the ball. Interesting statistic. I would be curious to know what you make of this. So he actually shot a higher percentage from the field when Powell was not on the court. And he shot almost equal when Powell and Kobe were on the court as when Powell and Kobe were off the court. Here's the weird thing. He got more shots at the rim when those two were on the court, which is what you would expect, he'd getting those handoffs right under the bucket. But he shot really poorly from like 5 to 9, which is kind of the, post-up move area. But when he was out there by himself, he shot really a high percentage from 5 to 9 feet. And so I'm curious if maybe we're underrating his ability to anchor an offense by himself because it just makes so much sense that playing with Powell would make it easier.
Yeah, I think he clearly has the ability to anchor an offense by himself, and I would like to go back and look at the lineups and see if some of those sort of non-Powell, non-Kobe lineups had, maybe there's Troy Murphy or, someone to spread the floor at the 4 spot a little bit better, and maybe even, some guys on the wing who could shoot a little better than Metta and Fisher / Blake / Sessions. But yeah, no, the Lakers were funny last year where it's like, you looked at their numbers, and it didn't really matter who was in the game, whether it was Kobe, Powell, Bynum, 2 of them, 1 of them. They were just the same sort of just okay team, regardless of personnel, and it was weird that way. Yeah, I'd have to look at the Bynum numbers. It sounds interesting, but no one can stop the guy in the post. If he makes clean decisions, he scores.
Yep, the other team that was the big beneficiary of the Dwight trade, in many opinion, is the Nuggets. I can't tell if I'm high on them because I think they're actually going to be significantly better, or if I just think they're going to be so fun to watch and they're going to play in a way that appeals to me that I wish them success and it distorts my analysis of them. What do you think they look like next year?
I think they'll be good. I don't think that they're a contender. They will be unbelievably entertaining to watch. They'll run everyone off the floor and dunk, and JaVale will do crazy things. But I think we are at risk of thinking that they're better than they are because of how hard they pushed the Lakers in the first round, and I think we all overrated that Lakers team a little bit. And I think we're also overreacting to like 3 really good JaVale McGee games. And if you put Nene from like 2010 or 2011 with this team, we would all be justifiably super excited. Nene's not great, but he's like a B-plus kind of player, does a lot of things well. JaVale McGee, those were wonderful 3 games with the Lakers, but we need to see it over the course of a full season. We need to see if Mozgov can give them anything. The front court, they'll obviously go small a lot, as we all know, with Gallo or Wilson Chandler at the 4, but we need to see a whole season out of these front court guys, and particularly the centers.
That's a good point on JaVale McGee, Zach. I'm wondering, at $10.5 million, I was debating this with some people. Do you think that's too much to pay McGee, or do you think that is a bargain, considering the massive risk / reward? I think it's clearly too much based on what we know now.
I don't think it will ever end up being a bargain. Like, there's only, as you know, you're always talking about max salaries and the limits on salaries. I mean, I don't think on this salary scale, 10.5 will ever be like, wow, he's so cheap, he's worth LeBron's kind of money. I mean, he obviously has great potential, but again, his teams have been horrible, and they've been even worse with him on the floor ever since he set foot in the league. And $10.5 million is a lot of money to pay for that, and I think Denver paid it knowing that there's potential and knowing that it's a tradable number. I mean, we've seen with Denver that they've now signed 2 guys to sort of bigger than expected contracts and flip them within a year, and that's how they view players. They don't necessarily view themselves as having committed $44 million to a nutcase.
That's a good point. It is funny that people don't bring up how his teams have always been worse on the floor. He's almost like Jeff Green, except we're not excited by JaVale's novelty. We're not excited by Jeff Green's novelty per se. So it's sort of a similar problem there. Transitioning to the Lakers, you noted in your analysis of your very thorough analysis of that trade that the Lakers could potentially, when faced with small ball, just go with one of the bigs, and it's not too much of a hindrance to have only Dwight or only Powen. Given that, do you think small ball might be a weakness for them, or going against a team with a lot of three-point shooters might be a weakness for them, even if they have that counter move?
I mean, that's definitely the biggest question they're going to face is, we have the 2 incumbent NBA finalists, both of whom, to some degree, thrive when going small, although I think we're sort of exaggerating the Thunder's ability to do that. I mean, both because Scott Brooks doesn't like to do it all that much and because KD is just not LeBron as a defensive player. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be the test for them. I mean, are they fast enough to guard these teams? Can they impose their will if they want to play big like this with Powell and Dwight? Can they do that, and will it be a winning equation for them, or will it be a net loss when the Thunder go small? That's what we all waited for last year. Thunder Lakers was like, does Scott Brooks have the courage to put Durant at the 4 when both Bynum and Gasol are in the game? And he didn't really for like a lot of that series. They didn't really go small much in that series. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Do you think people are a little unfair to whatever small ball is? Do you think that people have it right? Because I see a lot of writers framing it as a gimmick, or a lot of fans framing it as a gimmick, and my take on it is 3 points counts more than 2 points. Are we just in an era where the stretch 4 or even a stretch 5, that's just good basketball, and we're wrong to side with tall ball in general?
I mean, I just think it depends on who the players on your team are. I actually think the NBA geekery, of which we are both a part, has been, I think, probably too fast to anoint this as the era of small ball in the NBA. I mean, there are stretch bigs like Dirk, and those are good things to have no matter what. Ryan Anderson's a good guy to have on your team almost no matter what, a power forward who can shoot like that. But this idea that the league is becoming so small and so fast, I think it's more like the league has Kevin Durant and LeBron James, and they're really, really good, and the rest of the league doesn't have those players, and for the rest of the league, having tall guys who can play basketball is still very important.
Yeah, I think we need a new name for it. We need a new name for our last title winners, featuring a lot of Nowitzki at the 4 and a lot of LeBron at the 4. That's not really small ball, is it? That's just having guys who are awesome playing your power forward spot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when Dallas is not small ball at all. I mean, that's Dirk, who's a 7-footer and can still pretty much bang down low, and it's not an accident that they won the title when they had the best defensive center they've ever had next to him. I mean, that was big ball.
Well, we have a question, a text question from Mogaius. Let's see. We're looking at the same 10 or so teams playing in the playoffs, playing for the playoffs in the West. What say you?
I mean, you look at, the 8 who made it last year, 7 of them look pretty damn strong again, and the 8th is Utah, and they didn't get any worse. I think actually Utah got a little better. So a team like Minnesota or Golden State is going to have to work hard to crack the top 8. I mean, there are some questions, but Dallas and Denver at 6 and 7 don't really look vulnerable to me. I mean, Dallas is sort of a whole new roster, but the centerpiece is still there, and the coaching staff that is so good is still there. So yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously you knock the Rockets and the Suns, I think, out of it and replace them at 9 and 10 with Minnesota and Golden State, but it's still, the top 8 is still pretty strong.
speaking of Golden State, you've been writing about them more than I have been, which I'll admit with some guilt. But you've been saying some positive things about what they've done in the offseason. Should the fans trust again, Zach? Should they trust again? Should they actually believe in this and believe in the competence of the new ownership group, given what has happened?
Well, here's my question to you, as a proud Oakland resident and a fan of the team. Would you trust? How would your trust level be if Joe Lacob had never said a word after the introductory press conference and just had said, like, "We're happy to own the team. We'll talk to you in 5 years"? I mean, I think a lot of the distrust stems from how sort of boisterous he's been, right?
Yes. A lot of it's the high expectations thing, and when you come out with such public high expectations, it almost gives off the sense that you don't know how difficult some things are, that you can almost just by force of personality wish some things to be true, and that might be exemplified by the coach of this specific team. I'm actually wondering, what's your take on how Mark Jackson did schematically with the Warriors, as perhaps a final question before we wrap this thing up.
I think that's now the biggest question facing the team is he the guy? They have an idea now of how they want to play for at least the next 2 years, and I think they have talent. And if you take away Curry's ankle, which is the biggest question facing the team, I think the second biggest one is, I think this is a question internally too, is do we have the right coach? Is Mark Jackson the right coach? And schematically, it's funny, all of the 2012 NBA season is like gradually frittering away out of my brain in terms of like what the Warriors ran and how they did it, and of course the last 25 games were a joke. I don't remember noticing anything particularly egregious or particularly amazing. To me, it was sort of just standard NBA Golden State stuff. I don't know, what did you think? What did you think of Mark Jackson year one, boisterous predictions aside?
I thought that he was a little sensitive. It's a very subjective judgment, but my take from it was less about the schemes. I actually liked what Malone was doing with the defense. And they weren't gambling as much. They weren't sinking in as much. They just didn't have the talent. It was a very poor defensive team, and Monte just does whatever he wants out there. My take from it was more that Jackson kind of didn't anticipate how hard it was going to be, which is surprising because he was in the league, but he came out with his chest puffed, and then midway through the season, he just looked like a broken man with just this very sad, meek voice and just glowering expression. I ended up having to use an empathy voice when I asked him questions, because otherwise he might snap a little bit, and I've taken that as a lesson of how to comport myself professionally in the future.
Can you give us your empathy voice?
Hey, Mark. So the last play, Dominic McGuire. Yeah, it was a tough one. Consider maybe running it for Klay Thompson, or was it just Dominic all the way?
Amazing.
Hopefully he has some happy moments.
Yeah. All right, Zach. Well, thank you very much for swinging by, and hope all is well over on the Upper East Side.
Enjoy Brooklyn, right?
Going well, yeah. We still need to have that beer.
Well, it's the dead time now, so be in touch.
All right, cool. Later, man.
Wait, how dare you criticize my asking about the Warriors and then use HoopSpeak Live for your networking, Beckley? How dare you throw that one out there? How dare you?
How dare you? All right. Well, let's see here. We've got Myles Brown coming on in a bit, but first, let's do your rumor, which I think will be a good segue into stuff to talk about with Myles and stuff that we've already talked about. What's in your noggin?
Oh man, let me get this one out. Let me draw this one out of my brain. Looking ahead, the rumor from my head, which often is a prediction, in this case, is that the Denver Nuggets, Beckley Mason's Denver Nuggets, will win more regular season games than the Lakers. Now, I want to make it clear. This does not mean that I think that the Nuggets are better than the Lakers or will go deeper in the playoffs. I just think that we have the perfect storm of a team that is very deep and depth wins regular season games, against a team that is very thin, and those teams tend to overperform in the playoffs. So that is my prediction. Let's go with maybe 55 wins for the Nuggets, 54 for the Lakers.
I'm just kind of sick of this Denver Nuggets stuff on the internet. It's like everyone talks about how great Daryl Morey is. I don't think Daryl Morey is a bad GM. I just think he isn't everything that the internet makes him up to be. I think he's very middle of the road. And this Nuggets team is very fun. They're good, but let's stop pretending they're even close to the elite. Iguodala helps. McGee's improvement will help, but they're kind of like the Hawks of the West. They're a great regular season team without much of a ceiling in the playoffs.
Except for with actual highlights.
Yeah, they don't have the potential in the playoffs. And I mean, they're fun. Like Josh Smith is allegedly fun, even though he's awful to watch most of the time.
But what's your take on this? Do you think that they would win more than a team that's better than them but thinner?
If Dwight's back isn't healthy, if Nash has problems with his back, then yes. But if the Lakers are relatively healthy, I think they're a 60-win team, even in their first year together.
Strong.
Old sports take from Zach Harper. Strong. Like it.
Ooh.
All right, we got a question I want to take here from our man, friend of the show, Kirk Serious-Face. He's a big Mavs fan. What can I expect from OJ Mayo? Yeah, well, you should not expect Jason Terry. I will tell you that much. He is not Jason Terry. He's going to play probably a little better defense. Although he's one of these players who looks like he's playing much better defense than he actually is. Your dog has grown a hand. Usually the person who's in the background of this. Anyway.
That's right.
But Mayo is not going to... We'll get to you in a second, Myles. But Mayo is not going to run the pick and roll as well as Terry. He's not going to have the same chemistry with Dirk, which was a big part of why Terry was so good, or even with Yamahimi, who's not on the team anymore. But he could run that pick and roll with just about anyone. And I don't see Mayo having the same burst, getting to the basket and getting space for his pull-up.
I like that Yamahimi pronunciation there, Beckley. That was very smoothly done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very nice. OJ Mayo, is he still dining out on what we thought he was in middle school? Is that a fair question to ask? Because I feel like he might have been overrated since that point. He wasn't good enough in college to justify that high of a draft selection. And then
pretty good in college.
A lot of guys good in college to justify where they're selected. I mean, that's not a new thing where you're like, oh, OJ Mayo should be remembered that way. I mean, he was a decent college player. He was a really hyped high school player, and he's been a mediocre NBA player. I don't think that.
Yeah,
I don't think
a lot of interest with the sense that we can save him, like
Sebastian
girlfriend with an unhealthy family history. That we can save Mayo and bring in the good out of him. That's a terrible analogy. I'm passing this to somebody else. My analogies are faltering, guys.
I'll step in here. What you can get from Mayo, though, is he's going to play really, really hard. He's going to do what the coaches ask him. What? You don't think Mayo plays hard?
No, just damn him with faint praise. Like, he's going to really try. Like, what does that mean?
Trying wins games. Like, that's an important part of being a good NBA player is trying a lot.
I like how I asked you to save me, and then when you pulled me off the cliff, I immediately just stabbed you in the arm, is what happened right there. I immediately just stepped on you right after you saved me from my floundering.
Right. Well, anyway, takes that out. I think Mayo is gonna contribute. I prefer Delonte West as a talent, but Mayo is gonna give you consistent effort. He's gonna shoot the ball fine. I mean, he's not exceptional, but he's a decent piece, and they're not paying too much for him. Okay, we're gonna try to do something that I don't think we've done yet, which is two dudes, one screen. Let's bring on Myles Brown, who is we've just been lurking in the background for the last couple of minutes. Myles, how you doing, man?
I'm fine. Not that there's anything wrong with two dudes on one screen.
Yeah. All right. So one thing one of my favorite things you wrote was about getting to hang out with Britt Robson at T-Wolves games and getting to know him and kind of the stuff that he taught you about reporting and writing and observing the game. And one of your lines in there was that you would come into the stadium and maybe it only happened once, I can't remember, but someone mistook you, you're like, what, 6'4", for a Timberwolves player. And you were kind of like, hey, just because I'm a black guy who's tall doesn't mean that I play in the NBA. I don't think people are going to be making that mistake with this new Timberwolves team.
They might think I am the butler. Yeah. I don't know. What do black people say?
What do you think?
Yes.
What do you think of this new team and the new kind of philosophy of bringing in a lot of Euros who will maybe not care as much about being in Minnesota as people who want to be like in the sun?
Genocide was a philosophy too, but I don't know. I mean, they're better team.
Comparable. I would say they're comparable. That's a measured take.
I think they're a better team. As much shit as I talk about them, they are very, very white. And I'm interested to see how the team will be talked about. I mean, we all know the coded language that we use as far as scrappy players, hustle hard.
The noses on that team are so hard.
Oh my God. I forget who said it. I died when somebody was like, 5 dudes are going to get injured diving for a loose ball at once. So it's a very white basketball team, but it's a better basketball team, and that's all I'm really concerned about.
Are you even excited for it? You know, because Ricky Rubio, whom I'd assume that you and Zach just have violent fights for his affections through the course of the season. You know, he's going to be a little bit slow coming back. Are you even excited for what is a potential good playoff Wolves roster?
I'm excited just because I think Luke Rittenauer did a good job last year as a backup point guard. I think that he actually opened up a bit after getting rid of Kurt Rambis and working well in the open floor. So I think he's a good stopgap until, what, like January?
Yeah, late December.
January, late December. He should be able to hold things over. And more importantly, just the open court players we have now, like Shved, Karolinko, who can finish at the basket and continue to move the ball like Ricky would have if he was there.
Do you think that Shved, and there was a little bit of hype about this until he had a few bad Olympic games, could he potentially become better than Rubio? Could he become Minnesota's new Rubio? Or is there just no way? I'm baiting, guys. I'm just baiting.
Is that what's going on here? No.
Maybe.
He's good. He is. He's very good. I mean, he hit some big shots. He also had a few bad games. I think that, like Ricky, he takes a lot of risks, but the rewards are high. So I'm willing to give him that chance while he grows. The only question I have about him is defensively. I don't think he can really guard anyone, and he's not necessarily a point guard. So you put him up against a 2, especially in the Western Conference, it could get ugly for a spell, but it's better than Wesley Johnson.
Fun fact about Shved, guys, he is one of the few players to have a shorter wingspan than height. Almost nobody in the NBA has that. Shved has that. That's one of the reasons why defensively it might be a little bit problematic.
As soon as Ethan heard his name, he just started Googling frantically to find out what his wingspan was before he developed any opinion about him.
No. It's like first looking up to see if he's Jewish. Second, trying to find out what his wingspan is. That was the order of the Googling.
Were you disappointed on both counts?
Somebody's baiting this right here, and I got to get to this. Shved, Rubio, Zeke, KJ. Will you at least not even countenance, not even acknowledge that Pete KJ might have been better than Isaiah Thomas, and that our memories from the past might be a little bit flawed? What do you say to that now that we're off Twitter and talking, with more characters?
I just question how many games you actually saw, and I hate to be the old man here, but I was there. I was literally there.
I was there!
It was very fucking good at basketball, and I don't know why this is even a question. Kevin Johnson could be better than what we remembered. That's certainly possible. But Isaiah Thomas is not worse. That is not possible.
Well, I would say, Beckley could vouch for me that I'm a nerd about rewatching the old games. Please vouch for me. Please validate me. No, and
you're a nerd. About watching the old games.
And Isaiah just had this high dribble that would get raked a lot. His dribble was high, and I think that's why he would average near 4 turnovers. Yeah, dude, he would get raked a lot, at least in the games that I'm watching. And he played for the team that had the best defense. You know, in a way, he was a more extreme version of Derrick Rose in that manner. And it's not crazy to suggest that maybe we just didn't know enough. We didn't know enough going back then. Nobody was talking about what the defensive efficiency of a team was.
What should I say?
No, I disagree that we didn't talk about defense because that's how the Pistons won. They were the bad boys. They beat you up. They played with defense. Like, everyone knew how important defense was.
Yeah, but we didn't know how to incorporate that into a discussion of the value of an offensive player and how we might overrate it like was done during Rose's MVP campaign.
Okay, my thing is, yes, Isaiah. Who was the starting lineup? Zeke, Joe D, McGuire,
It switched at the wings.
John Sally was in there for a while.
And, like, Lampier was really good at the start of their runs, or at the start of when they were good, and then he was kind of an average player towards the end. I mean, I guess that's what's confusing about the Pistons, was that Isaiah was kind of a constant as other guys fluctuated. And maybe he deserves some credit for keeping them good throughout that.
Joe Dumars was better than Isaiah Thomas at times, but I don't think you can say Kevin Johnson was better. Joe Dumars was a great player.
One screen fight.
Well, let me make my KJ case, because that's what the people demand. They love talking about early '90s Suns basketball, and we're often begged to do so. But KJ, that team won over 52 games 3 years before Barkley got there. People forget that. The Suns existed before Barkley back in the 90s, and they pretty much didn't have anybody but Kevin Johnson.
No, I respect that, and that's why I'm saying that Kevin Johnson can be better than what we remembered, but that doesn't make Isaiah Thomas any worse. He's still the only guy to beat Bird, Magic, and Jordan in their prime. And, I mean, he was the facilitator. He was the scorer. He was the crunch time player. He may not have been the best defender in the starting lineup or on the team, but that doesn't discount anything else that he brought to the table.
Yeah, let's not talk about this anymore, and instead talk about something that's happening in the present, which is the Lakers. Myles, you were one of the first to congratulate them and say that they are the overwhelming favorite. Do I think there's a tendency, I have a tendency, as soon as I see something, I don't exactly ponder it all the time. Having time to look at it, do you still feel the same way, or has your analysis changed at all?
Well, I don't know. It hasn't changed from 2 weeks ago unless somebody started playing basketball and I wasn't watching. But, I mean, while it is an early take, I feel like it was a fair take just because the balance on that team is very strong. I mean, the bench is weak. Mike Brown is still Mike Brown. But as far as the Western Conference goes, I just don't see anyone besides the Thunder contending with them. If the Spurs keep it up for another year, I will be really surprised. And if Steve Nash and Kobe Bryant can really find a way to share leadership of this team, especially with Kobe allowing Nash to facilitate the way that he sees fit, big if, then I think Pau Gasol is more involved in the offense than last year, which is very important, and that Dwight Howard will get a lot of easy buckets. And if you can get that team playing defense, I don't think anybody's going to beat them in 7 games.
I'm wondering, you've written a lot about Kobe Bryant and how much he has to do to still be great or still be good at this phase of his career, and I'm wondering, how good do you think he still is? Because I was looking at his numbers from last year. His true shooting percentage is lower than that of his team, yet he's taken 23 a game. Is he still a top 3 shooting guard? Is he still at that level?
I think Dwayne Wade is still the best shooting guard in the league. Who's number 2? There aren't any shooting guards anymore. I mean, so he might be top 3 by default.
Yeah,
right. He's not better than Harden.
I'd still take Kobe over Harden.
Oh, wait, I flipped that. Kobe's better than Harden, and Harden.
Reverse it.
I would say Manny's a lot better than Harden.
Okay. Yeah, I'd ride with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Kobe's still top 3. Obviously, he's not still the Kobe Bryant of fanboy lore, but he's good enough to get things done on this team. I mean, I was just thinking about the other day where, what was that, the Argentina game?
Yeah.
Awful first half. Awful. Kobe's done. Where's Kobe? Where's your Kobe now, you stands? And it was 20 points in the second half. He shows up when you need him. He puts his spots well. I think if he learns to control his impulses, another big if, he's fine. He'll be fine.
Yeah, Kobe in that game that is actually one of my, even though it's not an NBA moment, might go down as my favorite Kobe Bryant moment in his career, because it was a point where anything he did was absurd. Like, he had played so badly in the first half, he was turning it over so much, and then the shots and he was getting smoked by Manu off the dribble and off the ball, and then the shots he started making, yes, they were going in, but they just got increasingly ridiculous. And then, like, he missed one by about 2 feet after hitting 6 in a row. And it was like, at that point, all bets were off. Nothing he could have done would have surprised me. And yet everything he did, like, cracked me up. Like, I was just smiling every time he touched the ball, waiting for him to do something that I would find hilarious.
That's why I love Kobe. He's Ricky Rubio times 10. Big gambles, big risks, huge rewards. It's why you watch the game. We may like to see fundamentally sound, statistically sound basketball, but ultimately you want to see a guy go out there and take over and do something you haven't seen, and that's what Kobe Bryant is always trying to do.
I was watching that game from earlier in the season between the Knicks and the Bulls, and it was the game where Melo hit that awful three at the end to beat the Bulls in overtime. And I was thinking, like, that might be my favorite non-Rubio moment from the season, because it was the best and worst thing about basketball all in one play. I mean, they were jacking threes like it was a Pop-A-Shot tournament. It was such an awful display of basketball in overtime, but they were close enough. Melo pulled up from like 26 feet over Luol Deng in his face, knocks it down, and all is forgiven. And that is really why I'm almost going the other way with this whole we can't have Hero Ball thing. I like Hero Ball now just because that's entertainment, and I really do. I would rather watch Greg Popovich draw up a brilliant play at the end of a game, but not that much more than I want to see a guy hit a fadeaway 23-footer with his foot on the line over 3 guys. Like that, at a certain point, the drama just becomes too ridiculous to want anything else.
Yeah, it's basketball sport than any other sport. One guy taking over a game.
Right, and the individual, that's the way the game is marketed, because that's the way we interpret the game. The guy with the ball is the one who matters. And when the guy who has the ball is liable to do something insane, that makes for fun watching, even if, it's not the best basketball. And so there becomes these two questions that I think get conflated. Who's the best player and who's your favorite player to watch? I think for a lot of people don't see that as separate questions, but they absolutely are.
Yeah, I was watching. Go.
On you.
What was that? I couldn't hear that.
Are you special effects on that green screen?
Oh yeah,
filming a movie.
It's the gag set. We're gonna slime him at the end.
Yeah. Now it's the bleacher stuff. Who knows? I don't even watch the videos. They could be doing anything behind me. Like a dragon could be humping my leg, and I wouldn't know it. And I wouldn't argue with it because I can't watch myself on video.
Okay.
I missed the whole thing Myles said. I was just about to say, I was watching Kobe's 6 for a 24 game recently, the Game 7, and it occurred to me while watching that it was sort of oddly thrilling to see, what was crazy wasn't that he was missing, but that he was he's the only guy in the history of basketball who, when he's slumping, goes, I'm going to take a bunch of fadeaway three-pointers to try to break this slump. And in a way, it made me like Kobe more to rewatch this game that's sort of used against him in a pejorative way. It was so much fun to see him do that. Just who does that? It was awesome.
I think Ricky Davis would have a thing or two to say about Kobe being the only.
I don't know. I enjoy Kobe for his confidence, and it also rankles me sometimes. But ultimately, you have to allow him to be who he is. Because
and you have a reaction either way, which is nice.
What's that?
No matter what, you have a reaction that, and whatever you're watching, if you're spending your entertainment dollar, you want it to make you have a feeling about it, you know, and he does that for sure.
He's a lightning rod, and I think he enjoys being a lightning rod in that, you know what, I'm going to shoot this ball. If they miss and talk shit about me, I'm going to shake it off. If I make it, they're going to kiss my ass, and I'm going to enjoy it. And then tomorrow I'm going to do it again. And that's what we do. That's the bargain with Kobe Bryant here.
Unrelated to anything other than what you said on Twitter, you just need to tell me, what is so funny about this Kim Kanye thing? You love this. You absolutely love this. And I don't get it. She just seems kind of boring to me.
But that's the point, is that she's a boring, vapid, useless ass of a woman. But literally.
Yeah.
What? Not useless, but, you know.
That's what I was laughing at.
Anyway, I think that they are both the most, I don't know, controversial, is that a good word?
Self-absorbed?
That too. We can go.
Okay.
And the fact that they found each other. But the most important thing to me is that they have destroyed every man that they've ever come across. There's Jenner, Lamar Odom, so now they are taking on the biggest pop star. Ray J. Fuck Ray J's whole career up. So now they're taking on the biggest pop star in the world. And they're trying to attach themselves to his brand, and it will be interesting to see who brings who up and who brings who down. And I want to hear the breakup album. They're going to break up. They're going to break up.
She's sort of like the Galactus of the pop world. Just goes from world to world, devouring them, taking their strength. That's your nerdy Marvel Comics reference of the show. Hope you enjoyed it.
She is the ultimate succubus, and he is the ultimate succubi. So let's get it on.
Yeah, they are. There's something else. All right, man. I think we're gonna move to our closing segment here. But glad you could join us. You know, if you ever just want to hang out at Zach's house and be in the background of this show, you're always welcome.
Oh, yay. Can I bring the dog?
Yeah. Oh, Ethan, dog off. They're showing their dog off.
Feet down, dog. See? Dog.
He sprinted out of his chair to go get his puppy.
Oh,
all right.
Dog.
Well, let's see what he's got here.
I'm gonna guess it's a dog. You know what's a shame? Doing the show for like another half hour. Graydon is going to be here, back from Sesame Street in like 20 minutes.
Gang bang.
As he holds the dog closer. All right, Ethan, take us out with your dog. Let's see it.
Yeah, I really did.
Present the dog to HoopSpeak.
Oh, I thought he went and got MC Scat Cat.
That is an awfully cute dog. He has white feet.
Yep, white feet, and he is probably very confused. He's about 10 weeks old. You know, it's very important that the basketball fans know that I have a puppy. That is immensely important.
And working from home is getting a dog to keep you company.
Oh yeah, except it's hell at the beginning because he doesn't care that I'm writing. You know, he'll pee on the floor, and
I think he ever will.
Yeah, he'll never care.
Right, Beckley, you need an animal.
Yeah, Beckley, why don't you grab whatever's in the room?
What are you doing? Yeah, grab an animal. This is really, you know, this is like a slot machine coming up with cherry, starfish, or just something that just doesn't really, you know, make sense.
You have like.
This is my friend, the microphone. Hi. Anyway, I think it's time to close out HoopSpeak Live. Let's get a shot of the two puppies and get out of here.